Good morning, afternoon, and evening, depending on where you're connecting from. I would like to welcome everybody to Citrix Ready Technical Webinar Series, where we showcase how Citrix and its partners have integrated to deliver valuable solutions to common problems. Today, we have with us Atlantis Computing. Presenting today will be Vasu, Technical Marketing Lead in Citrix Ready program, and Vicky Pomerico, Senior Alliance Marketing Manager in Citrix. And we have Jim Moyle, Lead Solutions Consultant and Citrix Technology Professional. Citrix Ready is a complete end-to-end partner program that showcases and recommends third-party products, solutions, and services that demonstrate compatibility with Citrix products. Customer can quickly and easily find solutions recommended by Citrix in the Citrix Ready Exchange Marketplace by navigating to www.citrixready.com. For more information on Citrix Ready program, you can navigate to www.citrix.com/partners-programs/Citrix-Ready. Today we will hear a brief introduction about Atlantis Computing, listen to a presentation, and watch some amazing demonstrations. Did you know that you no longer need storage or solid-state drives SSDs for your virtualized Citrix XenApp deployment? You can use your server RAM as storage and completely eliminate the storage cost, complexity, and risk of introducing storage or network bottlenecks when migrating to virtualized XenApp 6.5. Fully automated deployments and minimize VDI project risk. Atlantis ILO for XenApp is a software solution that makes it cost-effective to deploy virtualized XenApp with no shared storage or SSDs, eliminating deployment risk, cutting CapEx and OpEx cost, and deliver an amazing user experience. Address previous write cache sizing mistakes, avoid costly re-architecting and unexpected storage CapEx cost overruns, automated and simpler deployment, fully automated multi-rack deployment to deploy faster with less people and risk, push-button automation, cuts CapEx and OpEx cost, no shared storage or SSDs, uses RAM as primary storage, amazing user experience, accelerates logons, application startup and performance. Now, before we start the webinar, we want to ask a few polling questions. All right, so we've closed the poll to begin the webinar. So without any further delay, please welcome Jim Moyle from Atlantis Computing. Jim?
Thanks very much, Vasu. So very nice of Citrix Ready to invite Atlantis Computing on to showcase our Atlantis ILO for XenApp product, and thanks for the great introduction, Vasu. I'm glad so many people have made it onto the webinar this evening for me, but whatever time zone it is for you guys. It's really gratifying to see there's so much interest in both Atlantis Computing and Citrix XenApp. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you through the new-ish Atlantis ILO for XenApp product, and take you through the advantages and how we can help together with Citrix to bring you a great product. So, Atlantis Computing, hope you've heard of us, but if you haven't, we're a software company focused on virtual data center optimization. We originally started out in 2006 and sold our first license in 2009, and we've been growing strong ever since. We have very close relationships with key industry vendors, Citrix being the primary one, but also various other names, as you can see, that we have a very close working relationship with. We also have some of the largest VDI and XenApp deployments around. Some of our reference customers are JP Morgan Chase, Colt Telecom, US Navy and Army, and many, many more that you can check out on the Atlantis Computing website. Seeing as this is a Citrix Ready webinar, it would seem an appropriate time to boast about them giving us an award last year. So in Synergy 2012, we had the Citrix Ready winner in the desktop category, amongst some really excellent competitions from some great other vendors. So it's a real privilege for us to have been awarded the winner award. So thanks very much to Citrix Ready. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat through why Atlantis for XenApp and some of the topics that we're going to cover on this webinar. So we're going to talk a lot about virtualizing XenApp, either how we're doing it, who's going to do it, and why we do it. And then we're going to move on to why we want to do it without storage. We're going to cover how Ilio does things. We're going to cover how Ilio does things in memory. So very, very clever technology, and hopefully something that will get you guys excited. We're all going to spend a little time talking about our old favorite provisioning services. Provisioning services like the location of, how you size it, and what the risks are around a badly sized provisioning services infrastructure. We're definitely going to talk about user experience, because user experience is king. I love talking about user experience because it's what gets desktop and application virtualization deployments off the ground and get the big user acceptance. And we're going to talk a little bit right at the end about automation and how we can make things so much easier for your IT guys, for your Citrix team on the ground when you're actually deploying this kind of thing. And all that with just software. Atlantis is a software company, so Atlantis Ilio is our software product. So those are the sort of subjects we're going to be covering today. Now, virtual Citrix XenApp. I mean, I'm from back in the day, before virtualization, I used to install Citrix presentation servers on physical desktops and physical servers, and that used to be my job. But the world is a different place nowadays, and most of new XenApp deployments are virtual. Now you get your classic virtualization reasons, increased server utilization, increased user density, decreased total cost of ownership, real classic virtualization plays. Another thing, smaller failure domain. If you have multiple XenApp servers, if you have one fail, or if somebody goes and downloads something naughty they shouldn't have, when they've got permissions they shouldn't have, you are not endangering 200 users. Simplified DR and maintenance. Enable stuff like HA if you want it. Enable vMotion off of your host so you can easily do maintenance without having to drain your XenApp servers. Faster migration time. So either everybody has or is about to migrate off presentation server. We'll go into the reasons why. If you haven't, then you're in trouble in a little bit. Now, we've had Server 2008 R2 and XenApp 6.5 there. Obviously, that is the current release of XenApp. There is something really exciting coming around the corner, which is Excalibur, probably going to be called XenApp 7, releasing right at the end of Q2 from Citrix. That isn't released yet, although many of you may be playing with the tech preview. Certainly here at Atlantis Computing, we're doing a lot of work on that platform to make sure that we're ready for it as well. But with XenApp 6.5 being the one out, that's the one we'll talk about today. And session density. So how many sessions can I get on a host? That's the key question, you know. That's the question I always got asked as a Citrix consultant. It's the question I still get asked working for Atlantis Computing today, is how many people can I get on here? So, because density is a really important question. All right. So I said we were going to get into why migrate to 6.5. Well, if we're looking at a 2003 based platform, MPS 4.5 or XenApp 5, then we're already past end of life. We have extended support now. Citrix do offer extended support, and it will finish at exactly the same time that Microsoft finish support for Server 2003. So Citrix said that they will support the overlaying XenApp platform on top of the Microsoft underlying system to the same point, which means essentially that if you're sitting in June 2015 on a large XenApp 2003 phone, then you are looking at lack of support both from Citrix and Microsoft. So we have 2 years. I would recommend, especially if you have a large farm and you haven't started looking at your project, now's the time. If you move to XenApp 6.5, then you have, as you can see, Feb 2016 till the end of life for that, so plenty of time, sort of. 2020, obviously, for the extended support, so ties in again with the underlying platform. So not only have you got the dates to worry about, Windows 7. Everybody's got Windows 7 on their laptops, desktops. I suppose some people at home may have Windows 8. I don't really know any enterprise that's going to Windows 8 yet. But you want to be able to give a consistent look and feel. You want to move off that 2003 user interface and give them a Windows 7 look and feel. So when you're virtualizing XenApp, there is some storage considerations to take into account. Virtualization introduces storage challenges. So if you haven't had to think about storage before when you're on XenApp, then you're really going to have to start, especially now that if you're using shared storage, as I said before, to provide HA failover, vMotion, that kind of thing. Density, again, limited by storage performance. And you know, if you are, as some people still do, I guess, you know, rebooting yours out of servers every night, if you are reprovisioning them due to updates to your golden image, all of these things are essential to performance. So 2008 R2, it's a more feature-rich environment. Migrating up from MPS 4.5 to XenApp 6.5, then you are going to increase the amount of IOPS, increase the amount of CPU and memory as well. But CPU and memory are much better understood than XenApp and IOPS. It's not a massively discussed thing as yet, but I know it will be. Improper sizing and storage and network can definitely add risk to your deployment. And lastly, latency. So latency is the absolute key to user experience, storage latency. So it means that, you know, if you want that instant opening of applications, if you want that real snappy user experience that people are getting on their laptops, you know, and you want them to have that on their work application, work desktops, then we need to have very low latency. So I didn't manage to catch the results of the poll, but we can have a look at a previous survey that we did at Atlantis. A year ago, 58% were already virtualized. I hope that that's more by now. A strange one, 7% don't plan to virtualize XenApp. I mean, I would suggest that they must have a very good reason not to virtualize XenApp, because it's almost a no-brainer. It's a perfect workload to be virtualizing is XenApp. workload, you've got some great stuff with provisioning services. MCS coming down the line for XenApp with Excalibur. So some real advantages to virtualization. What are we going to do? So let's say we are going to take advantage of PVS for XenApp. Where are we going to put the right cache? So most of you will be familiar with provisioning services. So provisioning services, you have a single golden image, and you have various options as to where to put the delta file. So your write cache, essentially. Provisioning services itself, you can write back to the server. A writely, not very configured option. You can put it on local disk. So if you have a shed load of spindles or some expensive SSD in the local pizza box, then you can stick it on local disk, or as the majority of people do, they stick it on shared storage. The one I didn't mention there is local RAM. So I'm going to talk to you quite a bit about using RAM as the storage for PVS, using Ilio, of course. So as some of you may be aware, it is possible to configure PVS to use RAM on your server. There is obviously significant differences between using the native version of storing RAM and using Ilio to enable RAM as storage. I won't go into too much of the Ilio side just yet, but Citrix themselves don't recommend using RAM because it uses a network driver to write into the memory, and if you do run out of space in RAM, it won't auto-size up. It will unfortunately freeze your server, and the only way to get out of it is through a hard reset. So although local RAM is there as an option natively, if you read the Citrix documentation, then it's perhaps not the best way to be going down natively. To get the sort of continue on the State of the Union thing, so we have the Project VRC State of the Union survey. Almost 1,000 respondents. Project VRC very kindly allowed us to reproduce the graph. And we're looking at, again, 60% running PVS write cache on central storage and about 40% on local storage. So we can see that most people are looking for central storage. So we'll kind of address that use case the most in the slides as we go on. Obviously, there is still a significant amount of people looking to local storage, but it's a very much smaller percentage. Citrix did a really interesting survey about the size of write cache, and to us this is vital, and it's how big is your write cache. So typically in the server there were 4 to 12 XenApp VMs per physical server, and it's a large write cache size. So we were actually quite surprised that we knew that they're reasonable size, but the size that people were using was a bit surprising. And we can see that we're getting 30% of users are over 16 gig in size for their write cache. And if you add the 10 to 12 in there as well, we're getting another 15 to 20% as well. So 50% of users over 10 gig and over. So large write caches. So that's kind of what State of the Union is now, right? So we've got 90% of people are virtualized. Most of those are virtualizing on shared storage, and most of those are using PVS, and they're using them with a large write cache. So if I'm not speaking to you, and that's not exactly yours, fair enough, but we can see that this will still apply. But that's a majority use case. So I want to talk about performance now. Talk about IOPS and latency and what it means to configure a VM so we get the performance that we'd like. You know, not the performance that we're set for, the performance that we'd like. And it's a single Windows VM stored in RAM on Atlantis Helio. Essentially, that means that it's got unlimited IOPS, right? So there's nothing, there's a ceiling for IOPS. This is a single VM. The y-axis along the left is IOPS, and it's going up to 5,000, and then we've got time along the bottom. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to open a whole bunch of apps. You see that as we're using a script to just sequentially open a load of apps, with antivirus from Windows Update, and then just leave Windows idle and record this perf on trace. Remember, this is just one VM, inside one VM. Wow, we're bursting up to maximum of 4,000 IOPS there. That's a massive amount, right? Why is Windows doing this? What on earth is happening that's causing these massive spikes? Well, Windows is just acting naturally because it doesn't have any, doesn't know that it's virtualized. It doesn't have any quality of service. It's not fair use. It's not saying, oh, I'm sitting next to another 5 XenApp servers, I better not steal any of their resources. No, it's absolutely not saying it. What it's doing is it's being massively greedy. So it's saying, I want to, as it should, give the best user experience possible. And if I have 4,000 writes and reads to do my Windows update, or 3,000 writes and reads to do to open Chrome, well, I'm going to get those done as soon as possible, because the sooner I get those writes and reads done, the sooner that application is open, and the better the user experience is going to be. It's just how Windows works. So these are actually good things. So this means allowing these massive spikes means that you're going to allow a great user experience. Now, when you do all of these sequential openings of loads of applications, we can see that, you know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Some people might come in and do that in the morning. We're actually averaging at 400 IOPS. So just really important to remember that allowing high burst gives you good user experience. All right. So we've just covered IOPS and burst and user experience. I want to talk a little bit about averages. Now, averages are a funny thing. I see them all the time. It's like you say, I've got an average of 6 IOPS per user, 5 IOPS per user in XenApp. So this is actually it's a physical desktop estate. It's a physical Windows XP desktop estate, but it illustrates the point for XenApp perfectly. What we have again on the y-axis is IOPS, up to 60,000. And time again on the X, but this time it is from 7 AM to 7 PM. And it's the cumulative I/O demand for that physical desktop state, 1,000 users over the day. So it's a real sort of pattern of how the storage is being used. So like I say, physical Windows XP, 1,000 users. If we wanted to virtualize these users, then we can't provide the IOPS for peak. That would be just silly, because we'd be providing massive amount of performance that isn't needed. And that peaks at about 48,000 IOPS. So one of the things that people do is say average. Now, the average here from 7 AM to 7 PM is 6,000 IOPS. The mean is 6,000 IOPS. We've got 1,000 users, 6 IOPS per user. I hear that for Windows XP. Coincidentally, that's also I hear what Virtualized XenApp per session is. So I hear that all the time. Now, if we only provide, so average of, so this is the calculation everybody does, right? Average of 6 IOPS per user. I've got 1,000 users. I need to provide 6,000 IOPS. That line on this is at 6,000 IOPS. Can anybody see a problem with this? Well, obviously we're not catering for any of this. But what I really care about, and what we all really care about, is that you're not catering for any of that area. It means that, as you can see, there isn't a single point underneath that line. So it means if you do this casual calculation of saying it's 6 IOPS on average, I've got 1,000 users, I'm going to provide 6,000 IOPS. It means that at your busiest time of day, when your users are most productive, when the most people are trying to get the most work done, you are going to have a 100% below par experience. So that is why I hate sizing on average. Now, I don't mind people giving us average numbers as averages. What I do mind is people sizing on average, because you've got to bear this in mind. It actually makes complete sense. I mean, all you've got to do is take a moment to think about it. An average is a mean, so it means that 50% of the dots must be above that line, at least. So, sizing on average, not a good idea. And I know we haven't mentioned Atlantis yet, but I want to give you a bit of background onto how to sort of think about this storage and sizing. Funnily enough, the don't size an average thing, that doesn't just apply to storage, network, CPU, memory, it applies across the board. So let's take the official advice from the Citrix blogs on IOPS, on XenApp and on IOPS. Now, this is excellent advice, and it is absolutely true. But you've got to know how to read it. So, as a general rule of thumb, each light user requires an average of 2 steady-state IOPS, each normal user requires an average of 4 steady-state IOPS, and each heavy user requires an average of 8 steady-state IOPS. If you could walk away going light 2, normal 4, heavy 8. So there are caveats in here, and they are caveats put in there deliberately by Citrix, and they are exactly right to do so. As a general rule of thumb, so for most use cases, you might not be most use cases. You may have a workload that is very, very different from usual. I was with a potential customer yesterday who have an unbelievably demanding application. They know it, but they have an unbelievably demanding I/O application. So general rule of thumb. It says average 3 times there. We've just learnt exactly how to think about average. Yeah, average does not mean max. All right, and again 3 times it's a steady state. Steady state. What's steady state? Well, steady state means post boot, post login, post application opens, without doing any AV scanning, without doing any Windows update. It means when a user has all their applications open and they are just working away without anything unusual happening. So that's actually the minimum you need, because you are going to have other stuff happening. You are going to have users logging in. You are going to have updates to applications. You are going to have people opening applications. All of that isn't accounted for by this. So as long as you read it correctly, it's absolutely correct. But you must make sure that you read it correctly. Having said all that, let's have a little bit of a calculation. So ignore what I say about average and peak. We'll just do 5 IOPS per user. people have been doing this in a fag packet. So let's take you through it. 5 IOPS per user. I picked 5 because it's somewhere in between 2 and 8, and it makes all my maths easier. So 5 IOPS per user. So desktop virtualization of any kind is 80% write and 20% read in steady state. So 80% write, 20% read. We can take that 5 IOPS, so we make it 1 read and 4 writes. And then we have something that we call RAID penalty. Now, RAID penalty can easily catch out the unwary, because when you are introducing any kind of resiliency, there is no free lunch. You have to pay for it somewhere. And generally, in RAID, you pay for it in performance, because RAID was mostly designed to give you the maximum capacity and give you resilience. So where you pay for it is in performance. Fair enough, RAID 5's been around a long time, that's what they wanted. But virtualization changes that, because we need performance nowadays. So RAID 5, most common type of RAID out there, RAID 5 is a minimum 4x write penalty. So your 4 writes will in fact turn into 16 IOPS. So add that together and your 5 IOPS, your notional average 5 IOPS per user, in fact turn into 17 IOPS on the back end on your SAN. So let's say we get a nice server from one of the partners we mentioned before, whatever your vendor of choice is, and we can stick 200 users on that. That's reasonable to suppose. So 200 users means that we can build 17 IOPS times 200 users. So per physical host, all right. Remember, we're looking at the average thing here, and we're not even counting the bits above the graph that we were talking about before. 3,400 IOPS per physical host. Say we get 180 IOPS per spindle, so 3,400 IOPS divided by 180 IOPS, that will require 19 spindles. So if you're looking to get a very poorly performing environment with 200 users per host, where you're not allowing those bursts, I mean, you got 200 users on that 3,400 IOPS. We saw one user bursting to 4,000 IOPS. So, you're not going to get that instant application opening performance if you're only providing this. This was on an average. So, at your busiest times of day, you're going to be, again, very badly performing. So, but this is the type of calculations that people do, and they do them all the time. So I'm going to take you through those, and hopefully you can do them yourselves. Optimizations. So optimizations. It's a British spelling. Optimizations. We have an international audience. Optimizations. One of the optimizations people say for virtualizing desktops or desktop workloads, so XenApp, is this. So let's do a little search. We have lots and lots of non-grayed out icons here. Why is that? Why do we have non-grayed out icons? Because Windows search is running, indexing is running. Everybody tells you to turn this off. Well, if you've got enough IOPS from RAM, then actually you can say, well, I want to have instant search. Thank you very much. I can't even spell Atlantis. Look at that. That's terrible. There we go. Instant search. So, user experience. You want users to have instant application opens, instant search. We all use this kind of stuff. Ones of you that can spell anyway. So, what can we do? Well, we want to enable all this stuff. We want to give people burst. We don't want to size and average. So let's work all this out in RAM. Yeah. Let's add ILIO and let's see what it does for us. Well, one, look at, we remembered that we were having that 50% of people at 10 gigs or more PBS write cache size. Well, we're going to try and fit all of those in RAM. You know, we're going to have a hard time. So we actually reduce the size of that write cache, so we can fit much, much, much more data in RAM. Performance-wise, now we've got it in RAM. Provisioning time. So this is a full clone, taken down from 40 minutes to a couple of minutes, or even less. Boot time, again, really taking out the time it takes to boot up that XenApp server. So I want to dig into boot time a little bit more. So this is a customer of ours, and this is what we did for them. They were using PVS. They had a decent PVS server. They had good networking, but they had a contended storage. Now, boot time is massively read. So really, 95% of all that read I/O was coming from the provisioning server. There's only 5% of it going to storage, but it was heavily contended at the time. So what was happening is they were getting read starvation issues. So if you think about, you know, applications, you think, you know, they work on if this then that. So they need to have written the stuff before they can move on to read the next thing. And it was happening that they were getting really big latency on writing the stuff. So it was totally impacting their boot time. It was taking 8 minutes to boot a single VM. The boot time was when we booted a whole server worth of VMs, and we were getting a quarter of a minute for each VM on ILIO. So it's not just when you're doing PVS, it's not just boot is read coming from the PVS server. There's all other stuff that you have to bear in mind as well. So if ILIO can do that for you, how does it work? Essentially, we are a virtual appliance software only company. We will sit that virtual appliance between the hypervisor and the RAM on the server. We will provide a normal NFS or SSD mount point to the hypervisor. There is no agents or drivers in XenApp. There is no changes to the hypervisor. We just sit in line between the hypervisor and the RAM. And what we'll do is we will take the IOPS that we see in the blue graph on the left, we will do our IO processing, and we'll change it to the IOPS we see on the right, which is very small and considering server RAM. Now, server RAM, as we know, is massively fast. It also doesn't suffer from the garbage collection or the read starvation characteristics that flash or SSD do. So we'll just dig in a little bit more as to how we change that blue graph to the red graph, how we take out all of that horrible I/O and all that horrible capacity. So we do software storage processing. So we can process it locally on server. There is one ILIO virtual appliance per server, and that means that we process all of this I/O locally. So process locally on the server RAM. Very, very small latency, massive IOPS provision. Inline deduplication. One of the reasons we can fit so much in server RAM is that we can do this inline deduplication in real time. It's no, we run this every hour, it's real time. And it's on the wire before it even gets to RAM. So we can take about 70 to 80 to 90% out of a provisioning services write cache. If you've got full fat non-PVS XenApp servers, we can do exactly the same for those as well. I guess I'm talking about PVS a lot. Maybe in my head everybody uses PVS, but Maybe some of you don't. Maybe some of you got full fat. Maybe you're leveraging your existing SCCM or Alteris investments. Doesn't matter whether it's PVS or full fat XenApp VMs. We can do it for both. So take out almost all of the throughput and take out almost all the capacity, so we can hold everything locally. What does it look like? So, you've got your hypervisor. Maybe you've just got some local storage in there that you're beating the hypervisor from. You install the Ilio software virtual appliance. We do all of the cool stuff that you can see there, which we'll go into in just a second. And then we create a data store from the RAM on that virtual appliance. And then the XenApp service does sit on that data store. So, very, very clever functionality that we can pack into that little virtual appliance to use this local RAM for your XenApp service. Now, if you think about it, that has some interesting consequences for your architecture. So, all you've done is you've removed all your back-end networking, you've removed all of your back-end storage from your architectural diagram. So effectively, you've completely simplified your XenApp architecture. The way to roll out an update is just massively easier. You don't have to involve your storage team. You don't have to involve your networking team. Your desktop team can handle it all. Because, it's a XenApp upgrade, or it's a XenApp rollout. It should be the desktop team or the Citrix team that do it. So, software only. It comes as an OVF, 8-minute install. So, as I say, no changes to XenApp, no changes to the hypervisor. We'll run on any hypervisor. So, vSphere, Xen Server, Hyper-V are all fine. Again, using RAM as primary storage and any XenApp deployment model. So PVS or MCS as it comes in with Excalibur, that's also no problem for us, or indeed full fat VMs. And you can run XenApp on 2003, 2002 or 2012. It's absolutely immaterial to us. We'll work just as well underneath all of that. So whether you've got an existing deployment that needs help, then we can easily slot in underneath that. Or if you've got a greenfield, then perfect. We can architect from the start. So we're talking about, I mentioned right at the very start, we'd mentioned deployment near the end, and we are getting near the end now. I'm conscious that we want to leave at least some time for Q&A. An Atlantis virtual appliance per host. Let's say you've got a reasonable amount of users, you've got 100 hosts. Well, that's okay, because as part of our latest release, we have deployment services, which will deploy Ilio on multiple servers in multiple racks and do it in parallel. It will automatically calculate the optimum density, it will automatically calculate the optimum sizing for the Ilio virtual appliance, and it will automate the data store creation as well. So if you've got your guys saying, I don't know anything about this Atlantis Ilio stuff, how do you deploy it? It's massive work. It's too much. Well, we have deployment services which will totally take any of those worries away. We'll do it all automatically for you. And as part of that, we have Ilio Center, which has integrated administration. So all your reporting, your monitoring, all your events and alerts, that's all taken care of within this piece as well. So truly enterprise-ready features, truly enterprise-ready deployment. So you're simplifying. You're taking out your back-end networking, you're taking out your back-end storage. All you're buying is compute and Ilio. Easy to deploy and easy to maintain. You should never have to touch it. There's no buttons to press, there's no dials to twiddle, it's dead easy. So, risk reduction. Address right cache sizing errors. So simplify designs, no network, no backend, automated deploy. So eliminate storage completely. Do it in memory. So not only is it dead simple? You can get more density as well. And it is much better performing, as you can imagine, coming straight out of RAM. So up to 33 times faster provisioning, 4 or 5 times faster boot times. And if you've got anything that requires I/O, it's pretty much everything, you're going to see a significant speed increase for those applications. Example cost benefit. So this is 1,000 users. This is from our CapEx calculator, which we can easily share with anybody who emails us, and you can go over with a fine-tooth comb exactly the calculations. Where you don't mind, we're happy to publicize those. So if you've got the majority use case, so we established the majority use case at the start, right? If you've got the majority use case for 1,000 users, you're going to be paying a massive amount for storage. And that amount for 1,000 users is going to push up your cost up around $400,000. Taking away that massive storage cost and giving ILIO, giving Atlantis Computing some money for our licenses, so that's the orange bit underneath there, then you're going to save yourself a large chunk of cash. Just wanted to mention, I don't want to bore you with too many references, so I just thought I'd pull out one for you. US Army Medical Command. Obviously they have got a desire for rock solid XenApp infrastructure and fast as well. Almost 9,000 users. A split of XenDesktop and XenApp, but it's mostly XenApp. And otherwise it's a fairly classic deployment. It's all on ILIO and reducing the storage exactly as I've told you. So if we can take some Q&A now, that'd be great.
Thank you, Jim. Right, yeah, we do have some questions.
Yep.
Okay, the questions are pouring in. Okay, so what will happen with performance if you have 5 to 10 different work groups images on the same host? Are all the performance measurement done with a single image?
So performance measures are done with a single image, but it really doesn't matter because you'll find that the differences between images are not that great. So you'll have Windows, which will be the same across, you'll have Office, which will be the same across, and you only need to add in a small amount of extra RAM to each virtual appliance. So yes, it will increase the amount of RAM for a virtual appliance, but not by that much because you're only doing the unique data. So yes, does that answer your question?
Okay. Now the other question is, what version of XenApp is supported? Is it also supported XenApp 6 and 6.5?
Yep, 6 and 6.5, absolutely. So we will support from any XenApp version on 2003 to 2008 R2, and hopefully as soon as Excalibur comes out, we'll be supporting that as well.
Thank you. And we have a licensing question. So what are the licensing costs? Is it license per host or per VM?
So it's licensed per host on a 2-socket basis, and the cost will be less than local storage.
Okay. Right. So I do have another question. Right. This is about the applications. So what about the other workloads like SQL, IIS, and ERP?
So that is a really interesting question, actually. So we announced last year a new product, a forthcoming product was called ILIO FlexCloud. Currently, we support VDI and XenApp workloads. The reason being is because that's where we see the massive problems with I/O. Our customers have come to us and said that they want us to support all of those workloads that you are talking about. We did announce ILO for servers last year. I would say watch this space very quickly.
All right, and the question, when you say improve provisioning time, what exactly does that mean in XenApp?
So, so there's various ways of provisioning XenApp, right? If you're doing a full fat image, then you could conceivably mount an ISO. You could use Altiris, you could use Landesk, you could use provisioning services, and soon you'll be able to use MCS. When we're talking about that improvement in provisioning time, we're talking about a clone. So that's what the measurement is there from the timing perspective. But all provisioning is very I/O intensive. So you'll see massive improvements across the board for that.
Okay. And this is the last question, and the question is, can you do a live migration of VM between hosts so I can drain a host?
Yes, you absolutely can. So because we are just NFS or iSCSI storage, what you can do is you can mount an NFS as just normal shared storage. So you can do live migrations in motion or vMotion between hosts, so you can easily drain that XenApp host for maintenance, just as you would with any normal storage.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
That's all right.
And thank you for attending. This will conclude the broadcast. Thank you.
Thank you.